You're listening to the Governors Podcast, which is hosted by school governors for school governors and for all involved in or impacted by education governance. On the Governors Podcast, we have open, honest, and transparent discussions about governance in the UK education sector, sharing and providing insights into the realities of entering the boardroom, sitting around the governing board table, and leaning in.
Okay, let's get into today's topic.
So we're going to do something a little bit different today. I thought that because we are coming to the end of 2022,
yes,
and we are also, as of February 23, we will be at the 2-year mark of our podcast.
Wow.
I know.
That's gone really quick.
Yeah, the year has, those years, you can see years now, have flown by. The time has flown by. Mm-hmm. And also we hit our milestone, huge milestone of 10,000 downloads.
Yeah, I saw that tweet. I retweeted. I was really proud of myself.
Really proud of yourself. So it's like really significant, I think, to know that we're talking about governance. We're talking about governance in education, and knowing that it's become so popular, the podcast, and people are really buying into it and enjoying it. So
it really has. I am proud. It really has, and the impact it's having is what I personally hoped it would be.
Yeah, same. Because when we started out, we didn't know exactly how it would take off, and then as we built up our momentum, we're like, okay, like, you know,
people really want to listen to this.
Yeah, exactly. And we are even more engaged with our listeners. So that's why I had the thought that we kind of dedicate this episode to our listeners in a way. I guess it's like a dedication, to say thank you for the continued support. And the way in which I think we should do that is probably read some of the messages that we've received via email, via social media platforms. And so we have a handful. So I think if you read one, then we can talk about it for a bit. If there's questions in there, we can answer it. And then we can go from there. So when you're ready.
Okay, so this one is dated March 22. And it's from Paula. And it's relating to season 2, episode 11, agenda item 24.1, seeing the faces and races in your spaces. Wow. I do forget sometimes the titles of these, and it's really nice to see them like that. And this was when we were talking about diversity, and I remember it was such a big topic. We split it into 2 parts, didn't we?
Three parts.
Oh, 3 parts.
3 parts. Well,
yeah. Big topic.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So Paula says, "Hi, Olivia. How are you? I listened to the podcast episode 24.1 yesterday, and wow." And there are 3 exclamation marks after that. So she was really impressed. "Fantastic episode that you and Sharon have put together. So much I could relate to in that episode. You mentioned that you were going to put together an EDI, DEI, or D&I, whatever way round you want to put it, role description. I would love to support you in building that up. We can also then share within our schools and hopefully feed it out wider too. By the way, our school library has been refreshed with a whole load of diverse books representing people of colour, as well as books written by Black authors. Some of these books will also be used within PSHE class lessons as well. Thanks for all your support so far on this journey of school governance. Have a great weekend. Catch up soon, Paula." That's really good. But I get her with the DEI, EDI, DNI.
Yeah, you really don't know which way around, and everyone goes for a different order. And But in terms of the email itself, like the reason why I wanted us to highlight this this particular message from a listener.
Hold on a minute. Did you do it? Did you do the role description? Oh, right. Okay.
I think so. I think we drafted it. And this is one of the reasons why when I was putting this episode together, I was thinking, oh, I've got some actions that I need to check that I followed up from. I think we drafted it, but I don't know how complete we got to on that point. But I know I definitely contacted Paula, and I think we had a phone call on the back of this email. So we did talk about it. And so the reason why I wanted to bring this into the podcast episode today is because it shows how the episodes almost like connect or relate to where someone could be in their journey, you know, especially because we don't actually overly plan what topics we are going to discuss, because we almost think that almost everything that we talk about will touch someone somewhere.
Yes.
There could be something that you haven't thought about that we say that kind of sparks an idea.
And
it could be something that you a journey you're on, and it's like a solution or another way of looking at the same thing that you're already dealing with. So
absolutely. And we also were very clear about not tying ourselves to what was happening in that particular term where possible, because people are listening to the episodes at different points on their journey. I was recently in touch with somebody who, well, I recommended this to the podcast to them because they just become a governor.
Okay.
And they listened to episode 1, and then it was like, oh my God, this is brilliant. And last time I saw them, about 2 days later, they were on to episode 8.
Wow.
So it's the equivalent of binge watching, I think.
I guess.
Binge listening. But it's really interesting to see how different governors or prospective governors, because we do know that some of our listeners are not even governors yet, or trustees.
Very true.
It's really good to see different people getting different things from it.
Of course.
And that's the important thing. So yes, if you haven't done this role description yet, then that is definitely still on the action list for you to do, because I think that it is a good thing to put together a role description. And being in governance myself, I'm used to role descriptions for the chair or the vice chair, or in business they have a SID. Oh, what does that stand for? Something in individual senior independent director.
Okay.
So you know they have role descriptions for those. They may have role descriptions for committee chairs. But I think
and you also have them for your
link roles.
The statutory ones that you have to have, such as like your safeguarding and send. And so that's why when and this is another thing that kind of comes out of the podcast, because I know that some people have wondered or asked whether we are scripted, and we are actually completely unscripted. We are completely spontaneous in our conversation. So a lot of the times we forget what we've actually said in an episode. So to receive an email with someone kind of reminding us of something we mentioned, it's like, wow, like that's something we said in an episode, and you know, we completely forget, because it's not like we're working against bullet points and saying, okay, we must mention this, we must mention this. So the bullet points that people see in the description boxes with the episodes, like those are written afterwards. Those are not written before. It's almost like we kind of do it backwards. We have the conversation first, and then we kind of summarize it, capture it.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
So with this, especially because I have the EDI link governor role, which was newly created at the point that I got the role. I would say if it's not something that's a staple in your school now, so this is me speaking directly to the listeners, then definitely something worthwhile connecting with your EDI lead in school, because remember, governors yourselves, you do not write kind of policies, you do not actually do that aspect, but you can kind of make suggestions about what could be in place, so that if you then leave the school, say your term of office comes to an end and you don't continue, or other commitments mean that you cannot continue in that role in that school, then that role isn't lost, that
Mm-hmm.
responsibility isn't lost, and it can be backfilled. But yeah, this is definitely something that I'm going to rewrite on my to-do
definitely
list.
And we can put it on the
So
we can put it on the resources so that it's available
Yes.
via the, you know, whether it's the Education Governance Solutions website or the National Black Governance Net website, whatever. But, you know, I was in a meeting just an hour ago for one of the boards that I sit on, and just going through their PHSE curriculum, and you know, one of the things that was missing, explicitly missing, was diversity, equality and inclusion. And I raised that as a question, and you know, I was told that it is there, embedded within various areas of the curriculum. But I said to them, make it more explicit, so that I, as a governor, know that it's there, and also we can measure against certain areas and certain aspects, and it just makes it clear so that we're all on the same page. I think we're past the point now of not hiding things because we want it to not be seen, but just assuming things. That's the word. Of course,
yeah.
So instead of assuming things, make it very explicit that this is what we are doing, this is what we stand for, this is how we are supporting all of the children in our school in relation to diversity, equality and inclusion. So so that's a good letter. So thank you, Paula.
It is. Thank you, Paula. It's definitely something that has no doubt given me food for thought, and I'm the one that you wrote the email to. So hopefully it's something that others will find useful. So moving on to the next listener message that we would like to share, or spotlight, should I say. I don't think this is much of a question, but more just a reflection on the podcast. Okay. So this is from James. This was in the summer term 2022 as well. So this was just a few months ago from the time of recording. Hi, both. Only discovered your podcast this week. And having listened to my first couple of episodes, I wanted to let you know I think it's brilliant. You bring a really fresh voice and perspective to what can sometimes feel like quite a stuffy world. You've already encouraged me to bring more of myself to my governing. So keep these podcasts up. Thanks, James.
Well done, James. Thank you. It's really... again, I was saying to somebody not so long ago, you know, we bring who we are to every situation. There's an African Adinkra symbol called the Sankofa bird, and the bird symbolizes, the bird is facing forward in terms of its body, but its head is turned back, and it in a nutshell, in its basic form, it means to reach back and get. So you bring from your history, from your experience, and you bring that to your present circumstances. So who you are is who shows up at each table, but you can change who you are to make sure that you are growing and developing and moving forward, and you bring your authentic self. I know that word is you know, bandied about quite a bit and overused in some situations, but who you are authentically, if you have a passion for supporting children of this generation and the next, then you bring that passion to the governing board table. And it's important that it's brought there, because if you don't have passion around that table, how is it going to filter down into the school itself? If you're sitting there passively as governors, just you know, regurgitating things that have been said, you know, last term or the last meeting, and nothing moves forward. I think we've said it on the podcast before. You know, every year a new cohort comes in, so new life is coming into your school.
Of course,
every single year. So that same energy needs to be shifted at a strategic level as well. And it may not be a case that every year you've got new governors coming in.
Oh, the turnover would be mad. So probably not.
You wouldn't want that, but you want to make sure that you are bringing something new about who you are to the table and getting involved in something new. I've got a trust board that I'm working with to get new trustees on board, and everybody I seem to see has got a finance background, and it's like, seriously? Like, really? And I've even had people who do have a finance background and do finance as their day job say to me, Sharon, the last thing I want to do is do finance in my volunteering role as well. The whole point of me volunteering is to do something different than what I do in my day job. So, just because a governor or somebody coming in may have a certain specialism, doesn't mean that that's what they want to be stuck doing in the governing board table, because then that is, imagine you're doing finance all day and then you come and you're doing finance all evening.
And I'd say that governance is an opportunity for you to venture into something different. It provides an opportunity for you to explore an area that you don't do in your normal day job or working hours. I'd say there's so much more that you can kind of pick up, especially when you look at, just as you were talking about passion. I was thinking of that episode with Joe Phillips, which was towards the end of season 2, because I think that was something like being passionate and becoming proficient, and it really looked at governance as a volunteering experience. And so when you volunteer, you tend to volunteer either in an area that you are looking to build some skills in, so you don't have any initial practice or expertise in, so you may have some knowledge or some interest, but you want to build your skills in, or it's completely different to what you do on a day-to-day, week-by-week basis. And so if you allow yourself to look at being a school governor or being an academy trustee in that way as well, then it means that you just open up yourself to so much more when you're in the space. I think that's how I kind of approached it, becoming a safeguarding link governor in one of the school settings that I've been in the past. Having not previously come from a safeguarding background, I may have some elements in terms of my pastoral care towards the students that I tutor and work with directly, but not that I came from like a social services or background. But it allowed me to learn so much. And now I can confidently talk about safeguarding. I can do that training for safeguarding that you have to do every year without being a safeguarding link governor, because I know the value of it, regardless of what role I have or what hat I wear. So I do think that there's real opportunity there. And so it's great to know that one of our listeners has listened to a couple of episodes at the time. I'm hoping James stuck around and he's listened to some more. But I guess governance can seem really stuffy from the outside looking in. But what I like is that we're able to be excited about something.
It goes back to passion.
Exactly. So we're passionate. So I guess that's what we did. We didn't just want to bring our passion to the table. We wanted to almost reinvigorate that passion in other people so that they can see that the work that you're doing is of value and it is amazing, and you may not get thanks for it all the time, but it's definitely making having an impact, a positive impact. So I agree with what you said. So thank you, James.
Thank you, James. Okay, is it my turn?
Yeah, we can alternate.
Okay, this is from Marleen. And this is dated March 22, season 2, episode 10, agenda item 23. Fight the fear of finance. Who's just talking about finance? Fight the fear of finance. Hi, a big thank you for doing these podcasts. They really are inspiring. I did just want to mention that you discussed making savings on staffing where someone has not met their professional development targets. I absolutely get, from a governor's perspective, a small saving on staffing helps, but I feel that this has 2 big negatives for a school as well. Firstly, it indicates you have staff who are not performing, which is a concern in itself. And secondly, it's hugely demoralizing for a member of staff to fail to get a pay award. No school wants demoralized staff. I know this was not your intention, but with governors overseeing pay awards, we need to ensure governors are not inclined to push back in this area. Staff need to feel valued. While staffing is the biggest cost, they are also at the heart of success of a school and cannot be an area we look to for cost cutting. I just wanted to mention this as I feel there is a risk that looking at this from a financial perspective could be very damaging to the ethos of our schools. Budgets are way too tight in most schools, but without the staff, you have no school. And with underperforming staff, you have an underperforming school. So I think there is a need to tread carefully when talking about savings on staffing. Marleen. Firstly, thank you very much, Marleen, for pointing that out. And we have no problem at all with being corrected.
Of course.
Or being challenged. That is what governance is all about. And if I'm honest, without listening to the episode in full myself, and a lot has happened since March.
Yes.
I can't remember the thread of the, I can't, I honestly can't remember the thread of what we said. But staffing is the lifeblood of our schools. And I would definitely not want any member of teaching or support staff to feel that we as the Governors Podcast or governors generally undervalue staff. That I don't think I've ever sat around a governing board table and heard anybody, slate, for want of a better word, school staff, and especially during the pandemic, the well-being, the health of staff was paramount on every governing board that I was aware of, even if it wasn't before.
Of course,
during that
even
time,
more so.
It just highlighted the work that teachers do. So what I will do is go back and listen to that episode.
Same.
And anything that if it's the way in which we said it or I said it, if there is any ambiguity in relation to the messaging, we will definitely correct that, and we will pick that up in a future episode. But we definitely do not undermine or undervalue any member of staff. I should say at this stage that a lot of times when staff pay awards are being discussed, it's difficult for governors because we are almost one step removed. Yes. From the process. We are presented with information. There are various reasons why staff do not get a pay award that they may feel that they deserve. And working in a trust now myself as an interim head of governance, I'm seeing it from an operational point of view, whereas before this point I only ever saw it as from a strategic viewpoint.
That's true. Yeah.
And it's understanding. I've just done an appraisal for the head teacher in the school that I govern in. There's also the appraisal committee for the trust that I'm on. And in every situation, the thing that is paramount is evidence.
Of course.
And a pay award is separate to a pay progression. A pay award is almost like the standard award that everybody gets, whether it's a 2% pay rise or a 3% pay rise or whatever it is, and it's almost like a blanket pay award. That is different. Pay progression is about, does this individual member of staff, and it's usually in relation to teaching staff, does this individual member of staff have they supplied the right evidence to move up the
scale?
That's a different thing. So if we caused any confusion in that episode, then I apologize for that. But pay award and pay progression are very different. And I have been in situations where a pay progression has been rejected for justifiable reasons, but it is on a case-by-case basis.
Yes.
And it's never done to undervalue a member of staff. It could be because the staff is doing what they should be doing within their role.
And they can't go any higher sometimes.
Absolutely. You know, if a member of staff is in a position where they cannot go any higher because they're at the top of their scale.
Yeah.
And I've had this conversation. I had this conversation with the local authority recently. You know, what do we do in this situation? And there are different options, but the option is usually to move on to another
different
position,
setting.
a different school where you then go. You're in essence promoted, so you're then at the bottom of the new scale that you want. Because sometimes we may not get the salary increase as much as we love the job, as much as we love the school. If you're at the top of your scale, there can be no movement in certain circumstances, because if you move, then that means somebody else needs to move as well to make it fair. And all the time it's impacting the budget.
And I've also learned recently, because I don't know if it's standard, but I know in my school, in the autumn term, in the finance committee meetings, that's when you discuss the confidential items, the pay awards, but also on a case by case. The pay progression, that's it. And from my understanding is, even when you're looking at the senior leadership team, I learned literally last week, I learned that even when the head teacher reaches their absolute top, it doesn't matter how excellent they are, they have a scale themselves where it ranges. And that scale can only change based on other factors, such as if the school gets bigger, for example, then that's something that can be re-looked at. Or it could be that the strategic body, so the LGB or governing board, they are the ones that can determine what that head teacher salary is. But then on top of that, if the head teacher's scales move, then it filters down the school. So the head scales moves, and the assistants, and then it filters down. However, if the head's one doesn't, then it means that all the others are almost fixed where they are when you come into the school. So there's a lot. I think there's so much. I think from my kind of reflection on this message, this email that we received from Marleen, one, I was so grateful for it, because obviously it's amazing when you hear a lot of positive responses and you get comments about, how much the podcast has helped and stuff. But I love how this checked us in a way, respectfully. It was a case of, we're operating in governance, and governance is all about check and balances, and it's being about making sure we're challenged, and we are governors in our own right. So we can have someone listen to our, if anything, it tells us that you really listened to it, digested it, and then had your own thoughts to the point of wanting to respectfully contact us and let us know, because we don't always know how things land on the other end. And so it will allow us to go back to that episode and listen. And whilst that episode is already out, and it's not like we had any like loads of backlash or anything on that episode, but what we can do is listen to that episode and, as you said, clarify anything that we said, or do a part 2 or a follow-up. Because the thing is, finance is massive in schools, absolutely huge. And it's not something that you can solve or fully get your head around in a single conversation. And that's what we see our podcast episodes as, the agenda items. It's a single conversation. So I feel like finance is something that requires people inside the space, outside the space, looking at it from different angles. And so I appreciate your response to this comment, because I learned something from you in what you've said, in terms of just knowing the difference in the terminology, starting there, and then knowing that what would be the intention, how that could impact lower down, but also it depends on the vision and the mission and the ethos of the school. And then it's the culture of the school as well, and how financial budgets are managed by different people, and people come in with their own lens and how they see things going. And so it is a real thing, because
absolutely,
I experience it on the teaching and learning committee of the school where I govern, in a sense that anything you want to do touches the budget, absolutely anything.
Yes.
And then when you hear from the government that there's pockets of funding that's coming into schools, but then there's all these stipulations and stuff.
It's ring fence for something.
Exactly. Yeah. And then it's a case of, yes, we can subsidize this, but then the rest has to come out of the school's budget. So the school is constantly looking at what decisions they have to make, what decisions they need to make, what decisions they want to make, and making sure that they're serving the current student body today. And sometimes you'll make a decision now that is like, for example, capital spend, or, you're investing in something like the Wi-Fi. Like, these are things that you actually talk about, investing in Wi-Fi in your IT, because that is a fundamental cost, just like staffing. So is that you've got to keep everyone online. And so what you may take a financial hit here, like, it will then save you years down the line, but you don't know that yet until you get there. So honestly, Marleen, I appreciate you for reflecting on that episode, and really giving us something to think about with the content that we put out, especially because, the number of people that we reach now, in all corners of the UK, we almost want to be careful that we are speaking on things in a way that informs but doesn't mislead, but also to recognize that we are not going to know everything, and we're not going to be right about everything. So if anything, our conversations are there to inspire people to do some research or ask some questions. So that was amazing, just having that summarized in that way, having a different perspective, a different voice on that topic.
And just the final thing before we go to our sponsors, I totally think that teachers are underpaid. I've always felt that, always believed that, because every single profession comes through education, and therefore our educators should be paid for the value that they bring to individuals. So that is my personal take on it.
That's your soundbite.
Yeah. Yeah.
Governor Hub is proud to support the Governor's podcast. As a leading provider of online governance support, we know that confident and well-equipped governors bring about positive and meaningful change. So when you've been inspired to do your best by really leaning in on the topics that matter, you can rely on us for the tools to help your board work better, the guidance and training to develop your skills, and a secure online body of evidence for when it matters most. Visit thehoot.news to join us and feel part of something bigger.
Okay, so moving on to the next one. We have Iain, who emailed us in May 2022. He said, "Hi there, Sharon and Olivia. I've just discovered your podcast, and I have to say it's a fabulous resource for me as a new parent governor. Our governing body is part of a MAT and looks after an infant and junior school. I've only listened to a couple of podcasts so far, but have got a couple of burning questions I'd be really grateful for your advice on."
Okay, I hope we have given him the advice and he hasn't been waiting since May.
That question I can't answer. Iain, if you're listening, I am so sorry. But we will definitely make sure we've actioned all these. Right, so continuing with the email. One, governors and governing board role in engaging with parents. So that's like a subtitle.
Okay.
Quite rightly, our school leadership team takes the leading role on engaging with parents, usually through emails and a great two-weekly or bi-weekly newsletter, which tends to include a few questions for parents to voice their opinions on. One thing I've noticed is that the response rate from parents on these questionnaires and any form of volunteering seems to be very low, probably less than 10%, which is surprising to me given the efforts the school goes to keep parents informed. They do a very good job. As a parent governor, although I know that I'm not the parent voice, I do feel I have a role to play in helping establish a two-way flow of information between the school and parents, not through me, but by trying to increase parental participation. I'm a firm believer that if parents are more engaged with the school community, the outcomes will improve for their children. I'm not saying it's bad, but I think it could be better, particularly as we try and reclaim back some lost time after COVID. I've got a meeting with the head of school, HOS. It's
yes, HOS.
I'm using abbreviations now, but thankfully I'm in the space. Head of school and executive head teacher in a couple of weeks to discuss how the school and governing board roles might differ when it comes to parental engagement. But I'd be really grateful if you had any views or advice on the topic. Now that's point one.
Okay, do you want to deal with point two or do you want to move on?
Should I read out the full thing and then we come back to point one? Okay, continuing. So number 2, strategic plan. This one's much shorter, it seems. Very strategic. We don't have one.
Okay.
I wasn't expecting that. We don't have one. The school has improvement plans, but the governors don't have any strategy to guide their decisions. Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. I get it.
I get it. Yeah. I am due to chat with the chair or chat to the chair about what a plan might consist of, but I've got no starting template. Do you have an outline of what a good governing board strategic plan might look like? Thank you for your time in looking at these, and thanks so much for the podcast. There's some cracking stuff in there. Hope to hear from you soon. All the best, Iain.
Well, Iain, this is soon. It's only been 6 months, but I'm sure you can appreciate the busy lives that we lead. But apologies, seriously though, apologies for the delay in responding to this. And my mission for 2023 is to get better at responding to listener messages, so that we can at least get the answers to you that you want. So there's a lot there, but broken down, we are looking at basically stakeholder engagement.
Yep, that's number 1.
And strategic planning.
For the governing board specifically.
Yes. Well, so strategic would be, because at first when he was talking about strategic planning, I was thinking, well, you'll have your academy or your school development plan.
It would be around the school, but it's around
around the governing board. So yes, I've got views on that. So in terms of engaging with parents, your school, I think he mentioned that it's a junior and infant school, right?
Yeah.
So and I think I've said this before several times, and repeating it is not going to be a problem, because sometimes we need things repeated so it's embedded within our junior schools, our primary schools. Right now, all of our children are Gen Alphas. We've had this conversation before. If you don't know what a Generation Alpha is, please do Google it. By definition of that, the majority of the parents are therefore millennials. So my point in making, in saying that, is that we have to communicate with them differently.
Yes.
So there's nothing wrong with having a questionnaire, but how is that questionnaire delivered?
Yes.
Is it is it a piece of paper that it's handed out and with tick boxes, or is it an electronic form, a Google form or Survey Monkey or whatever? Does it have, 50 different questions on it, or is it concise that just allows a yes or a no or a not applicable? How, I think you have to look at how the questions are worded and how the questionnaire is delivered.
Yes.
Because so that will have a direct impact.
Yes.
On your responses. And in the private sector where I spend a lot of my time, 10% is good. No, it really
no,
is.
It
really 10% is good. I know in a school setting you might think 10%.
That could be 100. That could be 100 parents, like, because if there's 1,000 students.
Yeah, but in an infant school,
in an infant school, sorry, yeah,
the numbers are a lot lower.
Probably like 200 or something.
But sometimes it's not even about the quantity.
No,
it's
quality.
The quality. What you have to start. Stephen Covey says it best when he in the seven principles of leadership or something. His book is called when he says begin with the end in mind. What are you trying to achieve?
Yes.
What is the purpose of the questionnaire? Because at the end of the day, you're asking for somebody's time. And I know what I'm like when I get questionnaires. It's like, okay, what is it that you're trying to find out here? And how quickly can I get through this?
Yes.
So if the questionnaires are asking for narrative, meaning I got to type words and sentences, that's long. Yeah. And remember, you're talking to millennials, so that's even longer. It is. So think about the questions and think about how you can capture the information in the shortest amount of time. So can you do it on a scale of 1 to 5, not even 1 to 10? Yeah,
that's true.
Because 1 to 10, it just makes it too hard. It's like, I've got to think, is it a 7?
And then you're also thinking about reporting on that information when you get your answers back. If they're way too spread, then it's harder to know, to really get the temperature on different
so
things.
keep it to 1 to 5. 1 is poor, 5 is excellent. So keep it tight. Be very clear on your questions. Make your questions very short. Does your child feel safe in this school? Do you feel that your child is safe in this school? Are you able to get the responses from the head when you want them? Are you able to meet the head on request? So, think about your questions and keep them very sharp, to the point, so that somebody can literally be on their phone. If you've got to do this, if you've got to respond to a questionnaire on via an email or via a computer, that's long. You lose people. Make it so that they can do it whilst they're sitting in their car, at 3:15, waiting for the school bell to go at 3:30, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So you've got to think about the parents' ability to complete it in their time, not yours.
Can I also say, just to add on to that, is the benefit of keeping your questions neat, that's probably the word I will use, is because if you think of the language barriers that could be at play, especially at that level, because it's more likely that the parent will digest the information, whereas at a secondary school, the child will have some backstory or may be able to explain something. But I'm also thinking of that language barrier. And the reason why I say it is because Iain made a point about recognizing that as a parent governor, he is not the parent voice. And so my experience of governor colleagues who have been parent governors, the way they've navigated the space is they've considered the parental experience of the school without saying, oh, this person came to me and said this, and this person came to me. So maybe it's just looking at your parent governor role and how you can navigate that dynamic. It's thinking, okay, let me consider a parent who's like me and also consider a parent who's not, because you're engaged with the school. Like, even if you're a parent governor, you're engaged with the school. So you know what's happening before it happens. Whereas most of the parent community have a quite slightly more disconnected relationship with the school. They drop their child off, their child goes to school, they feel safe and happy there, they pick their child up. They do homework with them at home, but they don't necessarily know what's always coming up or why things are happening. So I think it's just looking at that time, almost like creating a SMART goal around your engagement with parents and looking at, okay, how much time do we want to take or for them to take using it? So
that's exactly, that's why you've got to make it, because I have literally abandoned questionnaires and surveys right in the middle of it, because it's just too long. You get to question 10 or 15 and then you start to ask yourself, how many questions is this,
or what section is this, a different section, or is this the same thing,
and is this worth my time? What is it that you really want to know from me, or so you've got to be very clear about the intention. What is the purpose? Because people will buy into that. So if it's I don't know, to you want to find out whether parents are happy with the current drop-off point or pick-up point for their child, or there's building works going on, and you want to find out from the parents what kind of facilities they would find useful, state your intent very clearly at the start, and also how many questions there are. Because there's if you know that there are 10 questions, you're less likely to abandon it at question 5, because you're halfway there.
That's true.
And especially if they are yes, no, or 1 to 5 responses, with always allow at the end of the questionnaire a place for comments, but make it optional, because then if you want to, some people may want to add comments, but others, the sooner they can get it done, the better. So think about what you want out of it. You want the data, but think about your audience. They want to just get it done quickly. And if you've got a parents' evening coming up, then why not have some devices there, so that whilst they're waiting, they can complete the question. I know schools that have done that. They've literally brought the parents into the computer room. The computers have already been set up, and with the questionnaires, and they will just get them to go on the site, put their answers in, and then they're away. It's done.
Click go. Click go.
So, or if you've got tablets or anything, then you can go round. Governors can do that, actually, be part of a parents' evening that's in school, or part of an or part of a we've got Christmas events coming up. You can be an extra pair of hands to go round parents who are there with their child, and just say, oh, can I just borrow you for 2 minutes to complete this questionnaire? You've got to make it really easy, especially for millennials, because their attention, love them to death, I've got 2 of them myself, but their attention is
it's more strategically placed. Like we're more selective, so that's why we're like, this is long. It's not because it's not out of laziness or inability to do something.
It's just taking too much of my time.
We literally weigh up our opportunity cost on a regular basis, and it's like, do this or do that. But just on one of your points, before we move on to his second one, the strategic plan, unless there's something else you want to say about parental participation, just when you said target audience, it made me think of schools as a business, right? And just looking at how they navigate the space like an organization, and you have to think about who your customers are, who your clients are, who your associates and your partners are, and it sounds like when it comes to parents, there needs to be a marketing strategy. You need to understand how you're going to target either people who are not parents of your school yet. So you're thinking about how you make your school look more attractive or be more attractive for students to want to come, or parents of children who want their children to come to your school, but also how you stay connected with those who are already a part of your school community. And so when you said target audience, that's immediately what I thought of, the school as an organization, and think, how would a business try and engage with their clientele? And I say that because I'm a millennial. I buy things online because I don't really want to go anywhere. So for me, what I find interesting, although it fills up my inbox, is you get a questionnaire after a parcel has been delivered asking about that service. Yes. How was it? And it's like 2-3 questions and a comment box, which is optional. And it will be a case of rating 1 to 5, like you said, or yes and no, or, you know, strongly agree to strongly disagree, even down to Uber. You get in an Uber, you get out of an Uber and you rate it straight away. 5 stars is obviously the best. And then it literally has options. If you if you touch 3 stars or 4 stars, it will give you options of the reasons why you didn't pick 5 stars. They're already there. I don't have to think.
Yes.
I don't have to think. It's like, if I want to give someone 3 stars, they'll be like, is the car wrong? Did they drop you off at the wrong location? Was it not clean? Was he not professional? I don't have to think. I just tap and go. And so, and so if you can, I'm not saying schools will get there straight away, but if you almost take a look at it in terms of you as an individual, how do you engage with businesses? How do you engage with companies? And so if you think of you as a client or as a consumer of something, you are now, as a school, as a governor, on the other side, thinking about what do you want to put in place?
You're the supplier.
Exactly. Your parents and your children are your clients and your customers and your consumers. And so you're thinking of how you want them to feel when they engage with your brand, be in your school community. So that's something that just kind of went off in my head when you said target audience.
Absolutely. That is and sometimes I know, you know, there are a lot of people who don't want to think of schools as businesses, and we don't mean it in that way.
No,
but
of course not.
There are elements from the private sector, from the business world, that can be used in a school setting, so that
can be used and be useful.
Yes, because it's all in business. It's all about the bottom line and about driving sales and things. In schools, it is about the education of our children. Yes. So if we want to know something, if we want to improve something, how are we engaging with those who are going to be impacted by that improvement or not? Exactly. We want to have those conversations. And so yeah, I would sometimes it just takes us sitting down, taking a step back and looking at what we're asking, looking at, you know, I was talking to somebody recently about around the area of diversity, and I was saying it isn't just about the images and having, you know, different diverse images. It's about the language that's being used in the written text. You know, that it's everything. It's everything. You have to look at everything. So a simple questionnaire cannot be just viewed as a simple questionnaire anymore. Otherwise, we go back to, if you do the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result.
Insane.
That's the definition of insanity. Okay. So
right, part two. Yep.
Part 2 is about strategic planning for the governing board. I would say, and I can sum this up pretty quickly and easily, actually.
Okay.
It is, if you haven't had an external review of governance, then that is a good place to start.
Yes.
Because that will have a laser focused look at your governance and the impact on the school, rather than the school per se, if that makes any sense. So an external review of governance specifically focuses on you as governors, collectively and individually. And if you, for any reason, if you can't do that, or you want something sooner, then think about doing your own evaluation. Your chair could meet with each of the governors, and my reason in saying that isn't to make it onerous for a chair, but a 20-minute meeting with each of the governors spread out over a term virtually, so that you can do 2 or 3 in a day or in an evening, to find out if what you think is working well is what's actually working well.
Yeah.
Because sometimes not everybody feels comfortable speaking in a whole group setting. So a one-on-one usually works better. And somebody must do that for the chair as well. So it's not just a case of the chair doing all of the governors. Somebody has to do the chair as well. So you might be able to get call in a favor from somewhere, or get somebody in to do an evaluation of the chair. But it's important that you review who you are collectively and individually, where your strengths are. So it could be your skills audit, where your areas for development are, so that when you then come to plan, you are planning from a point of knowledge and not just one of assumption. Because it's very difficult, in my opinion, to create a strategic plan if in 6 months' time, at the end of this academic year, you're going to lose 3 or 4 of your strong governors. Because you could be creating a plan that is based on them being around, and they're not going to be. Does that make sense?
And that's scary. That's a scary position.
It's a scary position. So it means that you will have created this plan. 3 or 4 of your governors would have left, and you've got no succession in place. And so then when you do finally fill those gaps, you've almost got to start again, because the plan that you originally had, that was bought into by 4 people who left, is disconnected from this new body. So at the very heart of it, what I do, and I say this to clerks, is do a governance report, do an internal low level review of your own governance in the form of a governance report. Know what the governors around the table are like in terms of their commitment. How many of them have got regularly give apologies or don't, so they're absent. So what value are they really bringing? How many are contributing? You sit around the meeting room table and there's 15 of you. Are there only 6 people actually talking at each meeting, and the others are very passive? Because when it comes to strategic planning, it's got to have a buy-in from everybody. It's got to be contributed by everybody. And if you can't get those contributions at a regular meeting, then how are you going to hope to get a proper strategic plan written, let alone implemented?
Of course. And especially as a governing board, you're all about strategy. And so as far as I'm concerned, it's ensuring that we hold ourselves accountable to what we're there to execute as well. So yeah, I agree with that. And I have nothing to add on that point, because I feel like it was a solid answer. I really hope Iain listened to this episode, because especially because we've answered his email in full, but I'm sure we will make sure we construct an email to send to him, just to let him know, or we can send him a link to the episode. Right, so now we can get on to our final listener message that we want to share in this episode, and I think it's back over to you to read out.
Oh, this is a almost like recent one, November 2022, and it's from Andy. Hi, I had to drop you a quick note to thank you for the support you have given without even knowing. Firstly, and more generally, I'm a fairly new chair that has set about modernising our board, despite being a governor here with various roles for 12 years. Listening to you has given me ideas and inspiration to keep driving change. I am working with a very progressive head teacher, and already I can see impact. I have brought in younger governors allowed the older guys to retire without leaving us stuck, and we are owning our lack of diversity and doing something about it. This week has been quite hard as we had a racist incident happen at Breakfast Club. Having listened to you both for hours, I had the confidence to know our school, despite desperately wanting to, lacks much understanding of the hurt caused. I could speak to the parents about our challenge and how we have to find a way to give children the tools to thrive in the diverse world they live in. I could support the head and listen, acknowledge, and speak freely to the mom and dad, and may finally have our first Black governor as a result. Your podcast is not all about diversity, I know, but you effortlessly bring the important issues to one place, and it is so useful for me in my current tasks. Best regards, Andy.
Wow.
That is amazing.
I must say this message was very timely when I picked it up, because on the night of the 9th of November, which was the day, it was a Wednesday, and it was the day that we released our 31st episode.
Okay.
And so that means we now have, well, not including this one, we have an episode for every day of any month. When you think so, someone's catching up, you've got one for every day of any month. But on the night of the 9th of November 2022, that's when we hit our 10,000 downloads. And it was quite an emotional moment for me seeing that, because obviously I follow all
you've worked hard
and the back end and you know, and it was just seeing that number tick over. I literally did see the 9999, and so I saw when the 10 hit, and so that was the Wednesday, and the Saturday is when this message came through. So days after that milestone. And when I first read this, it was genuinely so moving, like so moving, because it was just like, wow, this podcast has really touched people. Like, it was a humbling moment for me as an individual. I know we do this podcast together.
No, I understand.
As an individual, it was so humbling. It was just like, because the podcast is a silent audience. When we record, there's absolutely no one around. We don't have that, you know, like if you're speaking in a room.
There's no studio audience here.
Exactly. There really isn't. There really isn't. And so knowing that we're reaching people in areas that we may have never heard of before, because we get an idea of, you know, where the listenings are taking place. But, you know, that's why we are so grateful for people who reach out. Obviously, we're grateful for anyone who listens to any episode at any time. But for those who tweet us and those who comment on our Instagram posts, those who send us direct messages via our social media platforms, those who email, it's like you guys just know that we just want to know that we are being well received, and that what the content we're putting out there is serving you. As we say, we are not right about everything. We are not experts on every aspect, but we wanted to make governance more visible, more attractive, and more accessible. And so when we get messages like this, it means we're doing our job. The vision that we set out is being is coming to fruition, is happening, you know, to be able to support those who have never entered the space before, and to support those who are already in the space, you know, giving you a different perspective. So Andy, I definitely want to say thank you to you, because I would say your message almost brought me to tears when I read it. And I was so touched. So when I was then writing my email to you to share it, I was like, look at the message we got. I was like, this one tug on a heartstring. It really did.
Yeah, it's a nice way to end the year.
Yes,
as well. And to hear that and as he says, we don't just talk about diversity,
Mhm.
although we are very clear that diversity isn't just about race, although we are two Black females. It is about embracing difference, because as much as we are mother and daughter and both Black females, both governors, both this, both that, both the other, our viewpoints
are very different.
It's very different.
Yeah.
And sometimes our differences will clash.
Yeah.
And other times they will hug and hold. And so, to hear that you felt confident enough to deal with an issue that was happening with the children in your school, and reach a successful outcome to the point where you have a potential Black governor joining your governing board is almost like a win-win-win-win-win-win.
Yeah, that shows how representation truly matters.
Right.
And seeing how, okay, had we had someone,
it could have gone a different way.
It could have,
different way.
Or even had we had, representation of whatever degree, maybe it would have provided a bit more context before you then go into that incident or that situation. But knowing that you persevered through the process and there's a positive outcome, like, that's amazing. Like, and this is why I wanted to highlight this particular message, because this message reminded me that despite what we're doing as podcast hosts, there are people on the ground doing the work every day.
Yeah.
And so even though we are governors ourselves, and I feel like being on the podcast is now a requirement that we have to continue to be governors. We couldn't let those responsibilities go because we need to stay in the space. But I want to take this moment, just in case I don't have it in my takeaway, is to be able to say thank you to every single person out there who is listening to this podcast, who is a governor themselves, thinking about being a governor, know someone who could be one, because you are making a difference more than you realize. You may not get your thank yous all the time. You may not experience the reward yourself, but know that you are changing children's lives every single day by being engaged in those conversations, making those decisions, not being passive, leaning in, bringing your difference, all of that good stuff. From episode 1, being the only one in the room where that could mean you are the new person. It's not even about your diversity of ethnicity or age or disability. It is being you. There is only one you. And so the moment you step into that space, find your place and lean in, do your thing, because it is doing something. And something I've learned outside, just in my personal space, so outside my professional space, but just as in terms of being a human being, is the importance of legacy building, and that a legend is not just someone that most of the population know. Legends are not formed by just people who create some amazing technology, or who's a musician, or who's an artist, whether that's in movies or TV series or whatever. You could be a legend in your own space, because the moment you positively impact one person, then it means that you live on in their memory. And as far as I'm concerned, that's a legacy in itself. And so being a governor will reward you more than you could ever realize.
Absolutely.
That's something I've learned in the 5 years that I've been a governor in various spaces. It is one of the most rewarding experiences ever. So I am rallying governors right now. I am definitely putting a call out for more people to become governors. But Andy, directly to you and your message, thank you for tuning in all of those hours. I don't know which episodes you've listened to. I don't know when you joined this journey with us, but thank you so much. And I'm glad that we have served you well. And because as a personal thing from me, my goal is always to continue to be of service, to make sure that whatever I'm offering is of value to someone else so that they can rise. So to hear that, I was truly touched. I really would.
Absolutely. And if you want any support on onboarding your first Black governor, then remember the National Black Governors Network is there to support. You know, I'm happy to have a one-on-one conversation with your potential new governor if you want to drop us an email. But I endorse everything that you've said, Liv. You know, moving into my takeaway is about relationships.
Yes.
I think it's important that if we can view almost everything we do as relationships, then it does make it more personal. It does help us to navigate the space better. The relationships that we are creating, crafting with our stakeholders.
Yes.
What do we need from them and what do they need from us? The relationships we are wanting to create with new governors coming in. You know, how can we, you know, when I'm delivering, you've heard me before talk about culture add rather than culture fit.
Yes.
You know, how can we bring in new people who are going to add to the richness of the culture that exists and not take away, but understand that people are bringing their difference to make a difference, you know, irrespective of who they are. And, you know, just as we move into the Christmas break, however, which people may take, you know, take the time over this period, however they may celebrate or not, you know, I just hope that we use the time to reflect, you know, to reflect on whether our governing journey has been 6 months or 6 years, whatever it's been, you know, what does the next 6 months, 6 years look like? And simply in closing, thank you. Thank you for the 10,000 plus downloads. Thank you for the engagement that you've given to us. I promise that I will try to answer and respond to your messages more quickly. Because I'm aware that some of these have an impact in terms of time-wise going forward. So, you know, but do continue to engage with us. We absolutely love it. We'll talk for England. We've said that before. You know, but it's nice. It really is nice to know that it's having an impact, because that's all we want really is to make a difference to the generations that are coming through and continue to come through our schools. Yeah.
I think my takeaway will be the shortest in the history of this podcast, for me at least, because it just echoes that final point of yours and kind of links to something I've already said in terms of, you know, just remaining grateful and knowing that no amount of time is guaranteed. And so it's thinking about what you can do now is what you can do today. Just going back to an earlier point you made about, you know, thinking of people's time. Think of your own as well. In the time that you're in now, what change or difference or investment do you feel that you can make today? And today now looks different for different people, but it all starts with a decision. So that's how this podcast came about. People will probably join us in this episode and think, hold on, there's 32 episodes, like I've got catching up to do, not knowing that we made a decision. We are going to do a podcast because we feel that governance needs to reach more places in different ways, so that more people can realize that there's something within them that a school, a child somewhere will benefit from. And so my takeaway is to remind all of us of the power of reflection, because it reminds us of the power within ourselves, and to feed that forward. We don't believe in feeding back. We believe in feeding forward. And so I definitely feel that it's a moment to really thank everyone, be absolutely grateful for what we've achieved thus far, but know that we are still moving forward. So As long as you're with us, we'll keep serving up what we've got. We really will. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for listening to today's episode. Please rate, review, and subscribe via your preferred streaming platform. The Governors Podcast is a brand of the legal entity Education Governance Solutions Limited and a free training resource for anyone. So if you know someone who is interested in becoming a governor or a trustee, please share this podcast with them. And if you'd like to get in touch with us directly with questions or comments, then drop us an email at thegovernorspodcast@gmail.com.
You can also follow us on social media platforms at The Governors Podcast. Let's connect.